Hi, this is Ed at the Crypt Studio N14. I'm just going to give you this short video to show how you can, as a band or as an artist coming into the studio, do a basic setup for practice, rehearsal. I'll be doing another video later on how to record, and then a further video on how to master on the mixer we've got here in the studio, or take it out to your own laptop. So this is how you should find the studio when you arrive. If everyone puts it back the way they found it, then this is what you would expect. It's not always like that, but never mind, that's how it should be. The drums should be back in the drum booth and set up, although the recording mics for the drums may not be on the drums. That's okay, because some people like to move them out into the studio. Some people prefer to stay in the booth. So we don't attach the drums, but they are in the booth should you want to, and I'll do a separate video on connecting and recording the drums or rehearsing on headphones. So here we are in the main studio. So we always set up 3 mics as standard. That's on channels 1, 2 and 3. I've put labels on so you know what they are, and if we have a problem with a lead, then we can replace that really easily. You also have the bass amp with the head unit up here. That is on channel 4. Now when I say channel 1, 2 and 3, what I'm saying is that they go in to this multi-core on the wall. So here we have channel 1, 2, 3 and 4. So that's mic, 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 bass. These are not instrument inputs. These go out to the monitor speakers in the main studio, the big monitor speakers. So you should never have to touch these at all. Hopefully never touch them. And down here, the only other ones that are standardly sort of plugged in is the keyboard. So these two are coming from the electric piano here, that is left and right channel. So they are pre-set up, but as you can see, there are spare inputs. So if you have a guitar or any other instrument, you can plug into those on that channel, and then when we come to the desk, you'll see that it should match the channel on the desk. Now there's various ways to connect guitars. Most guitarists come with pedals, and hopefully with an XLR out, and you can just plug it straight into the multi-core over there. If you want to use one of our practice amps, the most popular being the Fender Blues amp, then that doesn't have an output. You need to put a mic in front of it. There are spare stands behind the desk, and you should also find an SM57 on the desk or nearabouts, which is the best one for recording that. And you stick it right in front of the amp and then run it into a channel over there, and then to the corresponding one on the mixer. So when you come in, you will need to make sure that all of these are on. So you've got power sockets down here, and it's plugged into, this is one of the main speakers, the main monitor speakers. There's an on switch at the back. There are volume levels as well. The best thing is not to touch them, but if you have to, or if they've been touched, then you want to have the volume at the back on about a quarter volume. I'm trying to show you on here. There you go. So you can see that is set to 9 o'clock on the left. Otherwise, you're going to get lots of hiss. So 9 o'clock on the left, and the input goes into that top input. Sometimes people will plug in something in the one below if they're having real problems with the setup, and they will just use them as an amplifier, but they should put it back. So it's the same on the other one over here. This is the second monitor speaker. Make sure it's on. There's an on button at the back, and then exactly the same. You should find that the volume, there you go, is set to approximately 9 o'clock, or a quarter of the whole volume. And these little switches on the side should be just set to off. That should be left like that. Okay, and there's the on button down the bottom. Keyboard, you have to switch on from here, on the wall there, and obviously, and then round here, there is a little on switch there. Takes a moment to get going, but then it's fully on. The mics are already attached, shouldn't have to touch those. Okay, so here we are at the desk. You shouldn't need to turn on the studio monitors unless you are recording and mastering and playing back. So you can leave those off. They have switches on the back. There you go, there's a switch at the back, but otherwise you don't need to turn it on at the wall. So you only really need to switch on the power for the mixer. That one is on, so I'm going to turn that off now because we don't need it on. Okay, so here we are at the mixer. Right, so these, the most important thing really is that these are all switched to live. Okay, otherwise you are listening to recordings, not hearing what you're playing at that exact moment. So these must be switched to live. These are low cut instrument cuts. They're not really that important. You might put them on microphones if you're getting too much high or low, but generally you don't need to touch those. These reds are important. They are the gain. That's the signal that comes in from the instrument. If there's too much signal coming in, then you're going to get distortion, and this little light will light up red and start flashing. So usually you want to check the volume, get the volume good, get it to where it goes red, and then just turn it down a bit, and that should be a good signal coming in. I usually put the vocals on about midday to suit most vocalists. Okay, you don't need to touch any of these because they should be the channels coming in from the multi-core, which I showed you a moment ago. So this should be microphone 1, microphone 2, microphone 3, bass, then whatever it is you plug in, and then finally right down the end here is the keyboard. Okay, down there on the last channel before you get to the Bluetooth, which is that one. Right, following the line down, compression can be useful, but it's for more advanced people. So generally just leave that at the bottom. Then you've got an EQ. So you might find that you want a little bit more cutting treble coming through on the microphones. Sometimes the SM58s can sound a little bit muddy. So you might want to turn up the EQ a little bit on the high. Or if you've got too much bass, it's too rumbly, turn down the low frequencies, or have a go with the mid as well. These yellows, these mons, you don't really need to worry about the monitors unless you are listening on the headphones in the drum booth. So I'll come back to that on a separate occasion, but generally just don't worry about those. Effects, it's set at the moment on a pretty standard reverb. A lot of vocalists would like a little bit of reverb to give them a little bit of warmth. So I set those at midday, but if you don't want it on, just turn those down. Pan is just left and right, so you should be able to leave it in the middle. Record is obviously record, but I'm going to do a separate video on that. Mute will mute the channel, and then here is your volume. Okay, so generally if the master volume is set somewhere like maybe there, -10, then I would set that first and then creep this up until it sounds about right. Okay, this has to be pressed on main because it is the main speakers in the studio that this is going to be coming through to. If that's not on main, you're not going to hear anything. Sub, well, we haven't generally got subs set up. You can set them up if you know what you're doing, but otherwise don't worry about that button. And the PFL we won't worry about until we get to recording. So that explains each channel. Okay, and they should all behave in exactly the same way. Just make sure these are all set on live. That should do it. Sometimes people have this button accidentally pressed down. I can't remember exactly what it does, but make sure it's up. Otherwise, again, you're not going to get anything. And if that is on mute, you're not going to get anything either. So there we go. Those are things to check if you've got a problem. The monitors, you don't worry about those unless someone is listening in the drum booth. And the sub you don't worry about unless you have set up a sub, which I don't suppose most people will. So you don't worry about those. These dials shouldn't matter. The control room are all to do with here, which in the recording area, and we'll worry about those when we get to recording. And again, having a song and everything, that doesn't matter. None of this matters until we record. So I'll come to that on the next video.